topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hi, this is Shelby Wagner, host of Learning to Dance in the Rain. And today I am very happy to welcome to my stage here Louise Baxter from the United Kingdom. And we're going to be discussing why scam victims remain silent. They're silenced voices. Why are they afraid to talk out? Louise, would you join me now, please, on center stage? Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for coming with me. So would you like to tell us a little about yourself?
So I'm Louise Baxter, and my job is head of the National Trading Standards Scams team within the UK. I cover England and Wales pretty much and deal with predominantly letter scams and telephone scams to try and stop them from getting into the UK system.
I see trading is, you said trading, national trading standards scams?
Yes.
That sounds like an interesting thing to hear about sometime. But today, let's talk about consumer vulnerability. I've always thought maybe that vulnerability might kind of be a negative word. What do you find that word to be?
Well, it is seen as a bit of a stigma, and when we use the words vulnerable, it's viewed as weakness, which is why people don't self-identify as vulnerable as well. It's a really tricky one. So we like to call it situational vulnerability, or you're vulnerable because of what's going on around you, which means anybody can be vulnerable at different times. And also, when you are in one of those situations that make you more vulnerable, you could be more susceptible to fraud or scams. So, for example, if you're recently bereaved or recently had a relationship breakdown or lost your job, or one of those situations, having a period of high stress, those situations can make you situationally vulnerable, which means if the criminals get to you at those particular moments of vulnerability, then you are more likely to respond to a scam.
Oh boy, that sure fit me. As my husband had died, and 6 months later, I was sold our house that he had created and built, and I was packing up, getting ready to move back to Michigan to be nearer my family. And boy, oh boy, did I know. But I was sick and I didn't know it. So I had all those things going on at the time that it happened to me.
So you had, I think the top 5 most stressful life events are people dying, onset of ill health, moving home, job loss, and I think, and there's another one as well. So you had 2 of those.
Oh yeah,
going on,
and I was ill. Right, they first said I had a sinus infection, and then a week later they decided it was flu, and then after that they decided it was a strep throat. I was sick about 6 weeks during that whole period, and oh my! But we're here to hear about you and your mother. Is it your mother?
So obviously this is what I do for my job. So I try and prevent people from being scammed, and I talk about it all the time now. So one of the things I do for my job is around trying to take away the blame and the shame that victims often feel when they are a victim of a fraud or a scam, because even the language we use around it is shaming for a victim. So we say things like you were vulnerable, or you fell for it. And we wouldn't say, for example, you fell for a mugging or you fell for a murder. We wouldn't use the same language when we're talking about victims of crime. So what we tend to do with victims of scams or fraud is we place a lot of the blame back onto the victim. And I have lots of conversations with my mum about this. And my mum isn't somebody I would consider to be situationally vulnerable. She's extremely internet savvy. She knows what she's doing, but she was having a period of vulnerability. She wasn't particularly well. She had COVID and she wasn't very well after COVID. And she was used to getting texts from her bank, because what had happened, say 6 months previous, she'd responded to a scam advert for a candle on a social media platform. And then what happened is the criminals had taken her data and then they had sold her data. So what we find with the criminals is they will take your data, they will then sell it from organised crime group to organised crime group. So what they're doing is they are trafficking your personal information, because your information is a really valuable commodity. So she was used to getting scam emails and scam text messages and texts from her bank to say, there's been some authorized activity on your account. We need to reissue your cards, because of this advert that she'd responded to. She got a text message one night, late at night, which she thought was from the bank, and she rang the telephone number on the text, and the chap at the end of the telephone talked her through the things that had come out of her account that shouldn't have come out of her account, talked to her about the fraudulent activity, went through the whole process with her to reissue her bank card. It just so happened my sister happened to ring her just after, and my sister was like, "You didn't ring the number on the text, did you?" And my mum was very much like, "I know exactly what I'm doing, Emily. I've done this loads of times before. But then rang the bank, and it transpired that the person that she'd actually been speaking to was a criminal impersonating the bank. And he had, in the very short time span, bought lots of things from her bank account and taken out a loan in her name. Managed to get it all stopped, but she was treated as if she had done something wrong. So we call that secondary victimization. So what happened to her was secondary victimization. So you're a victim of a crime. You then are secondary victimized by either people, your family, or by law enforcement, because there's this blame. Why did you respond to that? Mm-hmm. Why did you do that? Similar to domestic abuse. Why did you stay with him? Why did you leave? We put the same shame and blame on the victims in both scenarios.
Yes, I can relate to that very well. With my family, not only my family, but later on with the pig butchering scam that I had gotten involved with, hoping to make some extra money to pay the publishing fees that I had for my book, And then I lost the money because it was a scam. And then there was another way. Oh, yeah, we can help you get your money back. And I was hoping so much that they was telling me the truth. And of course, my daughter and my son, they all told me, "No, Mom, this is a scam too. But you get so far into it, you want it to be real." Right?
Because if you think about pig butchering scams as well, they start, and I don't know all of the particular details of yours, but with a pig butchering scam, they start with a relationship. So you're having a relationship online with somebody, and what happens as well is when it's in a relationship that's based on the written word, it's actually, and I learned this the other week, it's actually more intimate than having a relationship with somebody in person. Because what we do is we project all of our hopes, our desires, our wants onto the written word that we see. So we're placing the tone on those things. So if we want, and I separated from my children's dad like 6 years ago. So I've had to date in my 40s. So I get it. It's like the wild, wild west as well, trying to date in that situation. So if you're in a place where you go, right, I'm going to do this, and you get into a relationship, you're projecting. If you're potentially vulnerable because of things that have happened to you as well, and you might not be aware of those vulnerabilities, and your mental health might not be as healthy as it could be, again, but you're not necessarily aware of that. All of your wants and your hopes, you project into what you see written down. And again, what are we as human beings without hope? Like we have to have hope that there's a happy ending, because otherwise, what's the point? There is no point. So we project all these things into the written word, which in our heads then means we're in a much more intimate relationship than maybe we are, which means We turn red flags into daisies. We miss them. We skate over them. So it's normal human behavior to do that. And then with the pig butchering, what they end up doing is, because you're then what deemed to be a friendship or a potential romantic relationship with whoever you're speaking to, they talk to you about an opportunity that they've got from an investment perspective. And they're so clever because it's coercive control. It's abuse. They abuse you and coercively control you into inviting yourself into the scam. Oh my God, I want to invest in that. So again, they're not even you're inviting yourself because of the way that they've managed to manipulate you and coerce and control you and gaslight you and all of the things that they're doing to get you into it's called a hot state, so that then you make decisions you might not have made in that situation. And then you invest and you see your investment going up. And then when you pay to get your money out, that's when you lose your money.
That's right.
But those victims lose their money and their friend or romantic interest as well.
Right.
So we don't take that into consideration when we're talking about victims, and we still use, oh, they're stupid. Oh, they were greedy. No, they're not. They're just a human being looking for connection.
That's a very good way to put it, Louise. Thank you.
And and also, like, no one in the world, like not everybody in the world is looking for that. That's what everybody's looking. It's a basic human desire. And then we treat these people like, we treat these victims of crimes like they're doing something, they're seeking something outrageous. Or that it's stupid to seek human connection, especially after the last few years with the pandemic. Why wouldn't you? It really makes me cross that people are treated so badly when they're a victim of a crime, when these are organised crime groups targeting people when they're at their lowest ebb and using that vulnerability to exploit them for money, personal information, whatever that is. And then they can say that the refund scam that comes next, don't worry, we'll get your money back for you. Same organised crime group. They've just sold your details onto another crime group.
Yeah. And I believe I read in your thing something about suckers list.
Yeah, so again, it's a terminology that the criminals use. I hate it because it makes it sound like people are suckers, but it's the terminology that the criminals use, which is once you've responded to one scam, you're even more valuable as data. So therefore, because then they put markers against your name. So like Shelby will respond well to crypto, or Shelby will respond well to romance scams. Shelby likes this sort of personality type, etc. Then your data is harvested, and then they can sell you on to an organised crime group. That list is called a suckers list. It's essentially a victims list that is sold on to other criminals so that they will know how to more effectively target you to get your money from you.
Yeah. So, did your mom go through some therapy sessions, or did you go through some? Or
my mum's a bit stoic like that. Sort of her therapy is me and my sister, a bit old school like that. I love therapy. I think everyone should have it. However, mum and I, so with the situation, my mum was very ashamed, and she was like, I want you to talk about my story because I want you to help other people. She didn't want to talk about it because she was embarrassed and she felt ashamed, and she got very anxious afterwards, and kept saying things like, why was I so stupid? I can't believe I did that. Oh, it's my fault. And everything I talk about at work and everything I campaign about nationally was happening right in front of me. So giving me actual lived experience of it with my mum. And this approach doesn't work for everybody, but in our family, we're very direct and have quite a tough love scenario with each other. It's very tough. So we made jokes about it. Like, she takes my children to school, so we made jokes like, don't get scammed on the school run, which is not appropriate. We made jokes so that she would see that it wasn't quite so heavy. And then the conversation sort of veered into that when she would say things like, I'm just so it's my fault. I got cross with her. I was like, think about the words that you're using. This is what I talk about all of the time. How are we supposed to change the way the nation and everybody else treats scam victims if I can't convince you, my mum, that it's not your fault and that you are a victim of a crime? And whether or not you want to see yourself as a victim or a survivor is completely subjective. So again, similar to we've done a lot of work mapping domestic abuse and the similarities from a victim, shame and blame, but also the tactics the criminals use, because it is coercive control in both situations. And again, it's very, whether you want to be called a scam survivor or a scam victim is up to you. Similar to domestic abuse. Are you a domestic abuse survivor or are you a victim? Again, it's very subjective, and there is no shame in either one of those titles. But it's really important we provide that sort of empowerment to the victims and say to them, look, own this, talk about it. You're not the only one, and there are going to be millions more ahead of you. So we need to make this better and okay to talk about. Like we're getting better at talking about mental health, but we're still not there. But make it okay to talk about it, which then gives other people permission to talk about it, which educates people.
Yeah, I when I discovered it was a scam, the first one, and I decided to write the book, Learning to Dance in the Rain, I thought, did I really want all those people to know how dumb I was?
You're not dumb, you're brave.
It's not dumb. I mean, I have a master's degree and 2 bachelor's degrees.
Again, anyone that's vulnerable, also because we all have periods of vulnerability. When I went through my relationship breakdown, I was really vulnerable, and I did some things and acted in some ways. When I reflect now, I'm like, wow, that was a lot. But you don't know you're vulnerable at that time, and you're not dumb. You're a victim of a crime.
Right. I want the people to know that you're not to blame. If you're a victim, it doesn't mean that you were to blame. So stop blaming yourself.
Yeah. And you're very brave to talk about it, to talk about it publicly, because a lot of people don't like to talk about things that have happened to them publicly because of the shame that they feel for themselves. Because with scams and fraud, a lot of the time, if somebody just steals your bank account, or like steals your like, say you're mugged on the street, somebody takes your purse or takes your wallet on the street, you there's nothing you can do about that. Sometimes with being scammed, you're involved in it. You have to do something to be scammed, which is where the blame and the shame comes, which is again similar to like there's a lot of studies around coerced debt and domestic abuse and economic abuse, which is similar to scams and fraud. But to be in a relationship with a domestic abuse relationship, you have to do something. You get into that relationship, don't you? So you're part of it. But that doesn't mean you deserve to be abused or that you deserve to be scammed or that it's your fault that a criminal has decided to commit a crime against you. So we need to be careful. We need to be really up on the language we use. It's coerce and control. It's grooming for older people. It's fraud. It's crime.
Control,
yeah,
coercive control.
It's a crime. We're not talking about something silly or a mistake. It's a crime. These are victims of crimes.
And it seems like the police officers, when I went to report my crime, just patted me on the head. We're sorry it happened. Just don't do it again. You'll get in further. I mean, I just was just really, really lost. But I wanted to help people, others, to have not to have this experience that I had. And I had hoped that I could sway them, to give them enough information so that they would not be taken in by this again. But when somebody's telling you, with the bank scam, it didn't happen, but like with the pig butchering, with the romance scams, it's, you're so wonderful. You write so beautifully. I really want to get to know you. You sound like a wonder. I mean, when you're down, those comments really help you to feel better about yourself until you find
those things.
They only want your money.
But who doesn't want to hear those things? We also have to be really so some of this stuff as well. Going into gender a little bit in relation to this is that if women are victims of romance scams, they get treated far worse than if a man is a victim of a romance scam from a societal perspective. Because again, when women get to a certain age, why are you looking for a boyfriend? Why are you looking for love? Again, that's shame that women don't want to do that, and that's not okay. And women can't date younger men. That's not societally acceptable. Whereas men can date younger women. It's the language you use. Oh, look at him, he's a stag, isn't he? Look at him dating a younger woman.
Yeah.
Like, that's a typical man. Go on the lads, go on the boys. That sort of rhetoric. Whereas women, It's not societally acceptable. We're not allowed to do those things. And again, if a woman goes on if a woman is a victim of a romance fraud, and the chap that she thinks she's in a relationship with is of a certain aesthetically pleasing looks, there's a lot of, why would you think he would be attracted to you?
Right.
Again, were you blaming and shaming? Like people don't, even the phrase, if it's too good to be true, it probably is saying to people, you don't deserve good things. If it's too good to be true, it's never happening to you. We are so, the connotations and the things that, the words behind the language that we're using and the meanings of the things is saying to people, that's never happening to you. Do you not realize that? Like, why would you think that really attractive man would find you attractive?
Oh, you got it.
It's just not on. When beauty is completely in the eye of the beholder. And actually, who are we to say that? That, like, even like when you're talking, if you've got two really beautiful people or one beautiful, that doesn't mean they're beautiful, they could be horrible, which makes them ugly anyway.
Yeah.
It's not nice.
You know, when I was telling people about my book, and then they'd stand there right to my face and they'd look away, of course, and they'd shake their head and they'd say, I just don't understand how anybody could fall for a romance scam. And I'm standing there, hey, buddy, I'm right here. You're insulting me.
Yeah.
You don't even know it. So I tried not to be offended, but you know, that's what they were doing, is insulting me. Unintentionally.
Oh, and in an in-person. So if you think about an in-person romance scam, oh, you do actually meet the person, but they take your money. They take your money. Or when you're thinking about coerced debt, so you're in a relationship where somebody is coercing and controlling you, manipulating you, so you borrow loads of money, right? Because that's what they're making you do, which they benefit from that money. You don't.
Right.
You shouldn't be then responsible to pay for that money back because it's coerce and control.
Yeah, I'm still.
You're then saddled with a debt.
Yeah, that's right. I will never see the end of the debt payment for the pig butchering scam. Really, I will not. I'm 82.
Why will you not see the end? Why will you?
I'm 82 years old, and I have debt that will take me 10, 15 years to pay, maybe longer. That's what I'm stuck with. So, you know, yeah, I got myself in this jam and I'm digging my way out, but
you're a victim of a crime.
Pardon?
You're a victim of a crime.
I know, but so exactly what does that mean?
It's just awful that then, and again, that you don't get the right support, and then you're in a situation where you're then financially in debt and excluded because of the fact you're a victim of a crime.
So, yeah, where I was pretty well set when my husband died, after he died, and now 7 years later, you know, I got, well, you did it to yourself, Shelby. Okay, well, fine.
Well, no, you didn't.
I know.
If I came in and burgled your house, if I came into your house and took all of your stuff, is that your fault as well because you chose to live where you did?
So, yeah, I'm working on it. That's why I'm here. Like you, I'm passionate about getting the word out. And people, the best way to solve this problem is for us and you and everybody to stop sending money to these criminals. But you know what? Now we're finding out about human trafficking being involved in the pig butchering thing. What do you think about that?
Well, this is the other thing as well. When people talk about fraud and scams, they don't realise. So we do this sometimes within my role, within trading standards. We also deal with like fake and counterfeit goods. Not my team, but trading standards do as a whole. And when people buy things that are fake or like unsafe, for example, similar to fraud and scams, people don't see it as a massive crime. They don't see it as a big issue. But what those crimes are doing and the scams and fraud is they are funding organised crime groups who could be linked to people trafficking or other really bad crimes. So it's not just about, I mean, the fraud and the scams are bad enough, but it's not just about them. those crime groups are not just involved in fraud and scams; they're involved in some very, very dark stuff. So therefore, you're then they then fund other crimes on top. I know with the pig butcher and stuff, there's an issue in Cambodia, wasn't there, where a lot of the time people were being people trafficked, and then they were being put into a situation where they had to carry out the crimes for the organised crime groups. They were being pushed into a position where they had to carry out those crimes, make the phone calls, build the relationships. So again, the criminals are even victims.
How unusual is that?
It's so dark. The whole thing is so dark. And with the scams and stuff, all we're seeing is, like, for now, like even like deep fake scams, the AI scams, we're moving into it. The criminals have, because they don't care about data privacy and they don't care about the law or any of it because they're criminals, they don't have to comply with all the same things that a legitimate company would have to. So they can move quicker because they've got a load of money and resources at the end of their fingertips. So they can move really quickly, like the deep fake stuff from an AI perspective, using celebrity, for example, to say, oh, I invested in this and I made loads of money, but it's a deep fake video. Or even down to something more simplistic, like a famous celebrity going, take these diet tablets or use this moisturizer because it will make you look younger. And again, a lot of people are chasing weight loss and youthful appearance. So again, it's playing in to our personal insecurities. We're also, as human beings, we're not geared up at the moment to process all of the information that's currently being chucked at us from a social media perspective. And nobody has trained us on media literacy, on actually understanding why we're seeing these messages, what is true, what is not. Our children, I've got children, and my children sometimes don't know the difference. And I've got one child who's neurodivergent, who is literal in his interpretation of things. And in the UK, we've got 20% of the population that are neurodiverse. So, and that's an umbrella term for autism or ADHD or dyslexia or dyspraxia. So we're in a situation, those people may be literal in their interpretation. We're not teaching them how to decipher what is real, what's a filter, what's misleading, what's a scam. So we're moving into the scam victims of the future are going to be our children if we don't do something to teach them about this stuff.
Do you have some tips for us to, when we get a call, a text message or something from the bank, or some message wanting to give their, our credit card information? What do we have a tip for recognizing that is a false?
The first thing, never click on a link that's in a text message. I would always say never click on a link that's in a text message.
Never click on the link within
the text message. No, or the number that's in the text message. So if you get a text from your bank, phone the number on your card or the number that you know is the bank. Do not phone the number that's in the message, would be the first thing. And it's always doubt, like question your questions. So question why this message has been sent to you. And consider the communication. And legitimate companies, so good non-criminals, won't try and force you into making a quick decision.
Well, that's
a huge time.
Okay.
The other thing is always ask someone else. So it's about art. So that almost like that problem shared is a problem halved thing. So always take 5 minutes. So stop is the first thing I would say. Stop. So don't react. Get panicked. You get a text message on your phone saying your bank account's been compromised, or, oh my God, you need to respond to this message quickly because otherwise your parcel won't be delivered, or whatever that is. They're sent to make you panic. The language in use them is inflammatory to make us panic because then we don't think in straight lines. So it's take 5 minutes. So stop whatever you're doing, take 5 minutes, and then ask someone else, because they will view it from objective, fresh eyes without that emotional hot state. They will come at it with fresh eyes to actually go, is this legitimate or not? The impersonation ones are awful. Like I've had them before where and like I said, I've got children where the message will say, Mum, it's me, I've lost my phone, I'm stranded, I need you to put some money in my bank account so I can get home. So that has caused loads of people to send money to bank accounts that they don't know, thinking it's their kids, or transfer money to pay a phone bill, or transfer money via a wireless thing, because they think that it's their child that's texting them. It's an impersonation scam, which is not true. Even older children.
When I started this, it was elderly that was being targeted. Usually, recently, their spouses had died, whatever. But now it's coming down into the middle age group, and it's also teenagers, I hear, that are really, really vulnerable to some of these scams that are going out there. Yesterday, I read about one where this couple had lived in Hawaii for 25 years off of the names of babies that had died.
Yeah, because they comb the obituaries as well, looking for when you're going to be at your most vulnerable and most susceptible to responding. We've often within the UK, we're in sort of a bit of a mental health pandemic, and one of the biggest there's a huge amount of people that have been affected from the pandemic. We're just starting to see what that looks like now. But one of the largest affected groups are our young people. So like our under 25s were really affected by the pandemic. So these people are also more susceptible to fraud and scams now, because we're seeing such a dramatic increase in mental health. And mental health causes you to be situationally vulnerable. So potentially you could respond to a scam or a fraud.
Wow.
We're not going to arrest our way out of it. We're not going to be able to take down all the baddies and the criminals. So the way we've got to do is to build this community resilience by having these sort of conversations, so that we can educate, make it okay, get people to ask questions, get people to share their experiences, because peer-to-peer support. So Shelby, what you're doing by sharing your story, it's going to make lots of other people go, do you know what, I'll share my story too. Or I'll talk about that. Or actually, do you know what? I don't need to feel ashamed. I can talk about the fact that I've been a victim of a scam. So the peer-to-peer support is completely invaluable. Also, teaching children in schools about this stuff, because what we've seen within the UK is where you generally now have both parents go to work, grandparents pick children up from school. Now, I don't know about you, but my kids, if I don't speak to them within the first sort of half an hour of finishing school, I go, what happened at school today? They're like, nothing. Nothing.
No, that's
nothing at all. Nothing at all. But you get them in the first half an hour, you get that download of all the information. So if grandparents are picking up, kids can go. If you give kids messages to give to grandparents, they will come out of school and they will go to nan, granddad, whomever. Oh, do you know about this? What about this? There's a common scam going around, or there's this misleading information going around, or misinformation. What do you think about this, nan? And grandparents will take it from grandchildren, because there isn't a power imbalance like there is with children and their parents, because executive function shifts. So with my mum, me and my mum, we are, so she's my parent and she's staying my parent for now, but there will come a point where it shifts and I take over because of her age. And that's generally what happens. And when she got scammed, I went, whoa, I'm not ready for this yet, mum. I am not ready for this, because my mum's my hero. She's an amazing human being. But that shifts, and there can be a bit of a power struggle from a parent to child relationship. So if you try and tell your mum, oh, don't fall for that, or don't do this, or using the wrong language again, they won't hear it, but they hear it from their grandchildren, because there isn't that power struggle.
All right. What should I do if I think I am being scammed by somebody? What's the first step?
It's stop. Whatever you're doing in that situation, stop doing that. And then it would be talk to somebody you trust.
Okay. At what point do you go to the police? And when you go to the police, what do you say?
I would always encourage people to report it, because one of the main issues we have is it's grossly underreported, which means it's very difficult for us to identify where it's coming from and also what the true scale of the problem is, which means we don't get the government resources we need to be able to tackle the problem effectively, because it doesn't feel like as big of a problem as we know it is. So then with the police, it's just a case of just telling the truth and telling your story. And also firstly, go to your bank, tell your bank so that you can secure your money. So it would be if you're unsure, talk to someone you trust. Then it would be speak to your bank to protect your money, and then it would be report it to law enforcement.
And if your local people are not doing anything, can you go any higher than that? Or
in relation to law enforcement?
To the fact that, hey, I'm a victim here of the scam. What kind of resources do I have in this community to help me?
Again, it depends on what you've got I don't know what resources they provide within where you're in Michigan, aren't you, in relation to that? Again, so within the UK, we can provide some extra support for people, some extra interventions to help them, to support them, to get them back on track. I don't know what your local resources are, but I know there's quite a lot of work across the countries, across the borders at the moment, for us to try and work more collaboratively on this, and also try and work out where it's coming from so that we can work with our foreign counterparts and go stop it at source. Because obviously I'm not going to come to America if it's coming from America. So it's about working with the Americans to go stop it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's more work than that can be done. But again, this is relying on people to report it so that we get that intelligence to actually identify where it's coming from. Yeah. But there might be some scam survivor groups that you've got as well. I don't know. We have some peer-to-peer support groups here that people can tap into and support each other, and online communities where you can talk to other people with a shared experience, because you've got lived experience. So you're more of an expert in this than I am. You are.
Well, I have lots of experience.
Wow, and but you're an expert in it because of your lived experience. Nobody else can. So you've experienced it firsthand.
Right.
What it feels like, which is why it's so important that you're talking about all of this.
Okay, well, I thank you. I know that you have anything else you want to say? I know you have another appointment you have to get to.
No, just thank you so much for having me on today. It's been really nice to talk to you and meet you.
I'm very glad to meet you too. And we need to build a community of scam victims, family of scam victims, and the law enforcement, the bankers, and all of that. I only wanted to help people. That's why I wrote my book, Learning to Dance in the Rain. And right away, the banks kicked me out when the scammers sent a false check to them, terminated my bank account, and my 3 Social Security check and my 2 pensions had just gone in. They wouldn't give me any of my $10 in my pocket. I says, how can you just close my account and not let me have any of my money? And they said, too bad. And I said, am I going to get these back? And they said, well, they may just take it and pay off some of the debt that I had incurred. And I thought, wow.
Again, secondary victimization. You're being secondary victimized again, being a victim of a crime. That's the wrong way to manage it or support you.
And do you know what I found out about 2 months ago on one of the background checks? My name is now on the government watch list as a possible terrorist.
What? For what?
On truthfinder.com. Yeah, that was right on there. Well, it has three things. I'm a possible terrorist. I'm a possible funder of terrorists. And I forgot what that third one was. But can you imagine? I mean, I'm 82. Give me a break.
Because you're a scam victim.
Yeah, well, and I got terminated from the bank and all of that. Right. So
because you're a victim. See, we find this sometimes with victims of scams. If people are repeat victims as well, the banks do exit their relationship sometimes with scam victims. What we then see is those people become financially excluded, so then they're not able to access services, which means they get a poorer deal everywhere. We've got to change up the system and how we provide the support as well.
And I heard someone told me that I trust that getting a community, Shelby. So if there are people out there listening that have been victimized by a scam, romance scam, phone scam, a bank scam, any kind of a scam.
Yeah.
Let's email me at shelbywagnerauthor@gmail.com and let's talk. We need to get this community. Maybe the government officials won't listen to one or two people, but maybe they'll listen to 20 or 30 or even 100, right? Or
Yeah.
more. So let's band together and see what we can do. And
if all you do is raise awareness and get people talking about the fact that they may have been, everybody's fallen, see, I'm using the wrong words now. Everybody's been a victim of a scam at some point. There is a scam out there for everyone. Okay, so the more people talk about it, the more people build their defenses against it, because the more people learn. If we hold our heads in shame and we don't talk about these things, we don't educate anybody with our words, we're just hiding. And that's it. And that's one way to make effective change, is by talking about your own personal experiences to educate other people, to make it okay for them to then talk about it.
That's it is therapeutic to talk about it.
It is.
Find that you have comfort in finding out that you're not the only one. I found out this one man told me his sister was an executive in some big company, and she was flying and she got scammed just like I did. Well, that made me feel a little bit better, but it's a shame. It's really
it can happen to anyone. This is the thing, it can happen to anyone. And it's similar. If you look at the statistics and the research again around domestic abuse, that can happen to anyone as well. Sometimes we have a very defined picture of how we view people or victims of certain things. And actually, and then when it isn't the person that we have an image of that it's happened to, it takes us back, and then we're like, what do you mean? And then we project, because if this could happen to you, and you're intelligent, you're clever, you're degree educated, you weren't poor, you went this, you went that, we project all of those things onto people, because then it could happen to us. So a lot of it's fear. So you have to remember that as well. People sometimes reaction is fear. If that happened to you, that can happen to me. And I don't want that to happen to me. So I'm going to make you stupid, or I'm going to make you feel shame. So again, people have to keep their stuff to themselves. But again, it's the only way we do that is by educating and supporting and actually not making it feel something shameful. So people then don't do that and push it all away.
Yeah, that's very important. So is there anybody in the audience that's listening today that might have a question for Louise? I'd appreciate it if you call in right quick. We've got a few minutes left.
You did have a question about, do you find that the scams are running both in the UK and the United States equally?
Oh, do you know what? I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know what the state's statistics are. All I can say from a UK perspective is that we're looking at around a £10 billion loss to the UK economy every year from this. And that also doesn't account for what it costs for people to recover. So UK consumers are losing about £10 billion a year. So I would say it's pretty much the same. But again, it depends on the characteristics of the community as well, to which scams are more effective. So I'm going to generalize, men tend to be more likely to be a victim of a high roller investment fraud, because they're high rollers. They're like a bigger risk, whereas women will lose smaller amounts. So again, it depends on the population and the area that you're talking about as well.
This is a global epidemic, wouldn't you say so, Louise?
Yeah, I would say it's a global issue. Absolutely, yes.
Right. And as far as the United States, that said 2025, I believe it's expected to be $10.5 billion lost to scams, not, in frauds, same thing. And you know what I wrote my book? Yeah. It was only 145 million. And that was only in 18, that's 6 years ago, and now $10.5 billion. It seems to me like that is a big enough number that government officials ought to take notice of that, hey, this is a problem. This is an epidemic. And what can we do about it? And we're trying to educate people so they know this is going on and they can respond negatively instead of positively. But you know, the phone rings and you answer it, you're busy with something else, and they blabber about who they are and where they're from. And then they say, can you hear me okay? If they say, can you hear me okay? Hang up the phone and don't say yes.
It's trying to get you at busy times as well. So it's trying to get you when you're cooking dinner so that you're not thinking straight. You just got from work or you're trying to transition.
Right. Never can say what they never understand what they say. So I thank you very much again for being here, Louise, and sharing this with us. And I thank my audience for listening. And I want to say, hey, drop on over to Amazon.com and get your copy of Scams, my second book. It outlines 150 over scams and how to recognize them and what to do if you're thinking you're a victim of one. It gives 3 of my own victimizations that are in there, and that's your ultimate guide for helping to keep you and your family safe from financial fraud. And my first book, Learning to Dance in the Rain, I've been told people couldn't put the book down when they started to read it. So they're on Amazon.com. And next week, I want to tell you that our guest will be Ruth Mancino. She works at the Commission on Aging here in St. Joseph County, Michigan. And she's going to give us some tips for supporting your older citizens, your older members of the family. I believe they even have apartments in their beautiful facility in Three Rivers, Michigan. So please come and join us again next Tuesday, every Tuesday at noon Eastern Daylight Time. And you can see my past episodes on my website, Learning to Dance in the Rain, and on my YouTube channel at Shelby Wagner. And you can email me at shelbywagnerauthor@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Let's see. I want to thank you again, Louise, for being here. And
totally my pleasure.
Is there a website people could learn more about? Is there a criminal?
They can go onto a website called Friends Against Scams, which is www.friendsagainstScams.org.uk, and there's training on there and loads of materials and loads of information about different sorts of scams as well.
And look at my Facebook page. I try to keep you filled in on some of the latest scams going on, and I appreciate every one of you for being here. Please tell others about my Learning to Dance in the Rain podcast. They're on Amazon Music. They are on iHeartRadio, Spotify, I can't remember all those names. Anyway, you'll have to forgive me. I am 83 years old. But I'm going to say goodbye today. And thanks again for sharing with us your valuable insights, Louise. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.